Good morning, Campbell McCrary here, Amvest Capital in New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Commerce Resources. Commerce trades on the venture as CCE, Charlie Charlie Echo, and on the OTCQX as CMRZF, Charlie Mike Rio Zebra Foxtrot QX. Again, hope you enjoy today's program. It will also be available in replay mode. Feel free to chat in your questions or email them in, and we'll incorporate them into our line of questions after the formal presentation. The replay will be available about an hour after we wrap up at amvestcapital.com/webinars. Amvest, of course, is a New York-based specialist investment management corporate finance firm focused on the natural resource sector. And this is most definitely an event webinar for informational purposes only. Pleased to have with us today, president of the company, Chris Grove. Chris, making you presenter if you want to turn on your webcam. And Chris has been at Commerce since 2004, been a president since 2014, and has been industry, extractive mining resource industry, 20 plus years. And with that, Chris, if you want to share your screen, we'll love to hear what's going on in the rare earth space in Quebec.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Campbell. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you. I hope you can all see my screen there.
Yeah, and, looks good.
Excellent, excellent. It is a pleasure to present to you the Ashram rare earth element and Fluorspar deposit in Quebec, Canada. I have been in the industry for quite a long time. My father actually in his company gave an office to Robert Friedland when he came up from Colorado. And so I've had an understanding or a family's experience in the business for a very long time. That was pre, during, and post Voisey's Bay, by the way. My brother-in-law, Dave Hodge, is the president of Zim2 Capital, and he very kindly gave me a job in 2004 after my daughter was born. And I found that it was difficult to raise a family on the salary of an itinerant jazz saxophonist. So here I am today presenting to you what is our most advanced project, the Ashram rare earth element Fluorspar deposit. In terms of the forward-looking information, peruse at will, that one there. But let's go back. Let's go way back. In the beginning, there was a floating ball of rock called planet Earth, which then is the Earth's surface is traversed by hot, molten lava, which then present itself in different places on planet Earth as carbonatites. There are over 500 or approximately 500 known carbonatite deposits on planet Earth. Some of the ones to point out would be Palabora in South Africa, whose mine site has the largest man-made hole in Africa, which is 2 kilometers across. Araxá in Brazil, that's the world's largest niobium producer run by CBMM. Mountain Pass in California under MP Materials right now, that is a huge carbonatite. Niobec in Quebec, the world's second largest niobium producer. Bayan Obo in China, the world's largest rare earth element producer. And then in British Columbia, around which Commerce Resources was originally created, the Blue River Tantalum and niobium deposits. Approximately 90% of all of the world's niobium and over 80% of the world's rare earth elements are produced by carbonatite-hosted sources. In terms of the Eldor carbonatite, this was discovered by one of the most highly regarded men in the industry, Dr. Tony Mariano, and on that crew in 1983 when Tony was working for Unocal, the precursor to Molycorp. He had also on the crew Alex Knox, who's been an associate of Commerce Resources for its entire history. Alex Knox, I'm sorry he's wearing a cap because he's got a great head of hair. At any rate, those gentlemen discovered the deposit the magnetic anomaly in 1983. Now it's time to go in the Wayback Machine Sherman said the Wayback Machine to 1999. Yes, Mr. Peabody. We're going back to the beginning of Commerce Resources Corp. So in 1999, my nephew hand-staked the Blue River claims. Over the next 5 years or so, we found, identified, sampled, and drilled approximately 30 mineralized carbonatites on this set of claims. We have resources on the Verity, the Fur, and the Upper Fur, and the Upper Fur is a very large defined tantalum resource with approximately 23 million pounds of tantalum and over 200 million pounds of niobium based on 56,000 meters of drilling. And AMEC Foster Wheeler released a positive preliminary economic assessment on this deposit in 2011. Since the year 2000, there's been several very significant events in the world of carbonatites. In 2005, China imposed globally a rare earth element export duty, and China essentially created the opportunity for there to be a viable alternate rare earth element source instead of China. At that point in time, Commerce Resources initiated our search for a world-class rare earth element project. Late in 2006, the global niobium price quadrupled from approximately $6 a pound to $24 a pound, and Commerce Resources essentially doubled its search for a carbonatite-hosted world-class primary niobium deposit. In 2007, Commerce staked the Eldor set of claims in Quebec, and these were staked on the last day of the field program in 2009. And the two geologists, Ashley Peter Renich and Ramses de Souza, found the outcrop, which was identified, or at least the locality of it was suggested by our project manager, Darren Smith. And this was found on that last day of 2009. We did the first drill program in 2010, and the first discovery hole was announced in August 19th, 2010. And honestly, those numbers still are fabulous. 1.72 total rare earth oxides over 215 meters, including over 2% over 29 meters. Those results are fabulous. And in terms of the most abundant rare earth elements at that point in time, you see praseodymium, neodymium, lanthanum, and cerium. That is also exciting. Here's a photograph from a site visit in 2015. You see yours truly in my black toque there on the right-hand side. Patrick Muzzi from the Société de Plan Nord, two gentlemen from Investissement Quebec, who later became Commerce Resources' largest shareholder. Denny Williams here in the red jacket. Our project manager, Darren Smith, with his redolent red beard there. And then this gentleman here, who may be known to some people in the industry, Mr. Chris Berry. The Ashram rare earth element and Fluorspar deposit is in Quebec, which I've stated a few times, which is a fabulous mining jurisdiction. I would also suggest it's in the most attractive part of the most attractive jurisdiction, being Nunavik, mainly because Nunavik is under the JBNQA, the James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement, which is a very modern agreement with clear mechanisms in place for Indigenous dialogue, consultation, resource management. Essentially, it's a great codified roadmap to advancing a mining project. In terms of the government of Quebec, as I mentioned below or previously, they did become our largest shareholder in 2017 with an investment of $1 million. Denny Williams himself, in meetings I've had with him in New York City, he was the one who suggested that we highlight the road that the government of Quebec financed for Stornoway's Renard project. And that's about a 200-kilometer long haul road there. The suggestion has been made for about 9 years that the government of Quebec would finance a road in our area. In terms of financial information for the company, we were very happy to have raised $5.2 million in December of 2020. We currently have a financing open, which is still taking in orders, even though the financing is priced 10% above where the current share price is trading. We've raised about $2.5 million in this current financing. Zim2 Capital, I mentioned earlier, they are our largest shareholder, and that is run by my brother-in-law, David Hodge. Investissement Quebec still have a significant position in the company, and EDE Asset out of Toronto is our second largest shareholder. Let's talk about rare earth elements now. As Nikola Tesla said circa 1900, 1,000 years hence, the telephone and the motion picture camera may be obsolete, but the principle of the rotating magnetic field will remain a vital living thing for all time to come. Those words have never been more true than they are today in terms of the rotating magnetic field. In terms of rare earth elements, we have seen a continued increasing global demand over the last 15 years. And what we see developing now is an increasing supply gap. So many new rare earth element projects will be needed to address and meet the current and future demand. In terms of that supply gap, a significant aspect of that is transportation or electric vehicles. Wind turbines, of course, are also huge users of specifically the rare earth element magnets, but EVs, battery electric vehicles, et cetera, this is a very significant part of the market. In terms of asking the question, who drives electric vehicles? And maybe you drive a Tesla, maybe you have a Leaf, a Volt, etc. But in terms of who really drives electric vehicles, rare earth elements drive electric vehicles. And this leads us down the road to a consideration of monazite. Monazite is the industry preferred mineral to extract rare earth elements from due to its high neodymium and praseodymium NdPr content compared to bastnaesite and xenotime. In terms of these roads all leading to monazite, two very significant announcements were made in the last year. The first one being that Energy Fuels in April of last year announced that they were going to retrofit their White Mesa mill in Utah to process rare earth elements. In November of 2020, they announced that they were successful in doing that and that they were focused on processing only monazite hosted material. In August of 2020, the Saskatchewan Research Council also announced that they had about $35 million Canadian to construct the first rare earth element processor in Canada, and that this facility would also be focused on processing only monazite hosted material. And yes, both of these groups reached out to us, and yes, both of them requested a sample from us. In terms of mineralogy and geology, just very quickly, rare earth elements actually aren't that complicated, although many people will believe they are. The complication would arise from the fact that rare earth elements themselves, and people often say they're not rare, and that is fundamentally true, but the reality is that showings of rare earth elements are often found in one or more of the 150 rare earth element minerals, but there are only 4 that have ever been commercially processed, and this number has not changed at all in the last 15 years, and with over $1 billion of R&D spent, wasted on trying to extract rare earth elements from minerals that just can't be commercialized at this point in time. In terms of these, the 4 minerals that are commercialized, the dominant ones are monazite, bastnaesite, and xenotime, and loperite, which is not on this slide. But in terms of these minerals, monazite is arguably the most attractive because of its high level of NdPr, the magnet feed material. Now, in terms of geology, I'll be repeating myself here, but being a carbonatite is also extremely important, in so much as that over 80% of global production is from carbonatite-hosted projects. The Ashram Deposit is a monazite-dominant carbonatite. In terms of global producers in the Ashram Deposit, you can see here Bayan-Obo, the world's largest producer, carbonatite, monazite dominant. And let's skip down, look through this list on the 4th column, carbonatite, weathered carbonatite, specifically technically called a laterite, carbonatite, 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 down here to the Ashram, carbonatite, and monazite dominant. In terms of a direct comparison between the Ashram and the world's largest producer, Bayan-Obo, we are both large carbonatite deposits. Bayan-Obo is the world's largest rare earth element producer, producing approximately 45% of the entire world supply. And we also believe the world's largest fluorspar deposit. The Ashram is a very large deposit as we have defined it today. And we also believe it is the world's 2nd largest fluorspar deposit, which is exciting to us. And I'll say more about that later. We are both monazite dominant with bastnaesite secondary, and we do have a little bit, just a a sprinkling of salt and pepper, which is xenotime, which is a typical heavy rare earth element hosting mineral. We do, if I can draw your eye to the bottom bullet point, we do have a slightly higher grade of NdPr in our middle heavy rare earth element zone than does Bayan-Obo. Now, this leads us down the road to the Ashram, the rare earth element fluorspar deposit, which is the largest monazite dominant defined resource in North America. In terms of our current resource, we have 1.6 million tons in the measured category, 27.7 million tons in the indicated category, and 219.8 million tons in the inferred category, averaging around 1.9% rare earth elements. And over here on the right-hand column, you can see our percentage of fluorspar. The two pie graphs below here, this is for the total resource, and this one over here is for the middle heavy rare earth element zone, where we have a slightly enriched area of the magnet feed material. In terms of that magnet feed material and a comparison between current world producers, you can see us here on the far right-hand side with 24.7% of the Ashram distribution being the four magnet feeds: praseodymium, neodymium, terbium, and dysprosium. You can see that Linus and their distribution is about 1% below us in the middle heavy rare earth element zone. Our average level is just below Linus and just a little bit above Bayan-Obo. And then we're consistently and considerably above the percentage that MP Materials in California has of these four specific magnet feed rare earth elements. In terms of our PEA, we released this in 2012, and I would point out that it was done pre-tax, and so it will be done, or our pre-feasibility study will be done, of course, post-tax. But the pre-tax NPV was $2.3 billion. The pre-tax IRR was 44%, and that meant we had payback in this scoping study of $763 million, the estimated capital expenditure, in less than 2.5 years, which is remarkable, I would say. The other thing I would like to point out is that no byproducts were included in the PEA. In terms of optimization since the PEA, we have increased the drilling by approximately 10,000 meters. The hydromet flow sheet that the PEA was based on, we had only produced a 10% rare earth oxide mineral concentrate, and now we're producing concentrates well above 40%, so 4 times the grade there. And most importantly, no fluorspar byproducts were considered in the PEA, but our fluorspar byproduct will be incorporated in the pre-feasibility study, and I'll talk about that more a little bit later. We also optimized the haul road route, lowering the cost of that. We also were successful in signing a letter of intent with the dominant social group, the two Inuit corporations representing the Inuit in Nunavik. And we've got numerous R&D program collaborations ongoing with that are funded by federal and Quebec, the Quebec government. Jerry Maguire, that's right. At the end of the day, it's all about the money. Now, in terms of the PEA, if you look at the 4 rare earth elements, the 4 magnet feeds that were used in the PEA, and the price increases since that time, these are very significant. Both praseodymium and neodymium are up about 30% from where they were as we used them in 2012. You can see terbium up by more like 40%, 50%. No, it's more like 60%. At any rate, the funny thing about this is that the rare earth element prices have been very dynamic in 2021. And terbium, about a month ago, was 100% over where it was in 2012. And all of these have pulled back a little bit, excepting for dysprosium, which has not pulled back as much. But the lower value of dysprosium than what it was in 2012 also speaks to a design difference that was affected after the Senkaku boat incident in 2011, which was essentially that dysprosium went from $90 a kilo to $3,000 a kilo, and then everyone in the industry tried to design out dysprosium, but they were unsuccessful. But they were successful in reducing the input percentage amount of dysprosium in a permanent magnet. And so it has gone from an average in 2010 of 13% down to 1% now. And so you can see that represented in the value differential from 2012. But as you can see below here, approximately 2/3 of the 90% of the value of the rare earth elements in the ashram is from neodymium alone. And so the neodymium price currently is about 30% higher than it was in 2012. In terms of our flow sheet, this is as standard and as simple as it gets in the production of rare earth elements on planet Earth. The interesting thing that I would like to draw your attention to is that at the magnetic separation stage, we produce two concentrates. One is the 45 to 50% rare earth element concentrate, and in addition, we also produce a better than 80% met-spar concentrate, metallurgical grade fluorspar. And that is very exciting to us because it essentially comes out for free. And the value of met-spar these days is certainly above $350 US per ton. And we would, with our current annual production scenario, produce in excess of 70,000 tons of met-spar essentially for free. This slide I'm especially excited about because we have produced two commercially marketable samples, one for each of our commodities. In December, we delivered to a global commodities trader a sample of our upgraded acid-grade fluorspar sample. This material would fetch somewhere in the range of $600 US per ton right now. And this is, as was deemed by the global commodities trader, this is a commercially marketable sample. Just in March of this year, we also produced and delivered, as per an industry request, to an industry processor, a 44% rare earth element concentrate, which has a percentage distribution of 21.2% NdPr, which again is most important for the magnet feed market downstream. We're very excited about both of these samples. Both of them were produced at our pilot plant in Golden, Colorado at Hazen Research. Here's a photograph of Nick Hazen on the ladder by one of our column flotation systems. That is where our pilot plant is located, next door to the original Molycorp pilot plant, which has never been taken down. We're very excited by the ongoing work at Hazen right now. We have outstanding metallurgical reports that will be released shortly, and Hazen is currently working on the next batch of samples as requested by industry majors. In terms of these industry majors, here's a partial list. I'm very excited about the ones near the top of the list: urban mining in Texas, energy fuels in Utah, Albemarle, of course, and those are the USA requesters. In terms of the international requesters, I'm excited by Solvay having requested a sample from us on the day I became president, September 15th, 2014, as we toured their facility, which is the world's oldest rare earth element solvent extraction facility at the town of La Rochelle on the west coast of France. I would also like to mention Less Common Metals in the UK, who are the first significant commercial rare earth element metallization facility outside of China. They accomplished this feat of being able to produce rare earth element metal about 6 months ago, after they were financed by the European Union with 17 million euros in 2018. And we're very excited to be producing samples for all of these companies. In terms of ESG, this is something that we take as being essential to the advancement of a project. The project needs to be as low impact to the environment as possible. And also it needs to be good for the dominant social group, not just a bunch of guys sitting in Vancouver. And so because of this, and because of the work we had done on the Ashram project, really primarily the work done by Murray Smith here, accepting the E3 Plus Award from Frank Mariage, the president of the Quebec Mining Association in 2015. We're very, very proud of the work that she has done for us and continues to do for us. And her husband is our project manager, and look at his redolent red beard there, Darren Smith. In terms of the LOI we have signed with the Makivik and the Nayumavik, we're very excited about this. This was signed in April of 2019, and part of the structure of this letter of intent is that a committee was formed and to discuss the advancement, the development of the Ashram project, and our last committee meeting was just a couple of weeks ago on April 9th. In terms of academic and institutional collaborations, we are very fortunate in so much as these institutions have reached out to us. They want to work with us. We've delivered them material from the Ashram, and most of this work is financed by the Quebec or the federal government. In terms of the road I mentioned earlier, and Denny Williams saying that we should highlight the road the Quebec government financed for Stornoway, as well, you know, to mention the Quebec government financed the 165-kilometer long road in 1996 and 1997 for the Raglan project, now owned by Glencore. In 2018, I was asked to distribute a letter of intent to all of the companies in the Labrador Trough area by the Société de Plan Nord, and asking a very simple question, which is, if the government builds a road, would you use it? Yes or no? And if you used it, would you see it appropriate to pay a percentage of the maintenance fee? And 8 companies, including Commerce Resources, signed yes to both of those questions. However, 2 months ago, a very important event happened in so much as one of the most highly respected companies in Quebec, Midland Exploration, and then SOQUEM, which is essentially the geological arm of the Quebec government, signed a strategic alliance to spend $5 million just to the north of where the Ashram project is located. And this is the Labrador Trough here. And so we're very excited that to think that perhaps the Quebec government will finally come through with an announcement on financing the road. Well, I think I've reached the end of the presentation, but I would like to point out once again that the Ashram is the most attractive type of deposit. It is a monazite dominant carbonatite. Yes, we have a huge resource. Yes, we're located in a fabulous jurisdiction, Nunavut, Quebec. Yes, we've produced very high-grade mineral concentrates which are commercially viable. We've produced samples of both of our rare earth element concentrates and our acid-grade fluorspar concentrate, produced and delivered to industry majors as requested. We did release positive economics in 2012, and we are currently working on the pre-feasibility study, which will include the fluorspar byproduct. Thank you very much for your attention today. I would be happy to take any comments, questions, suggestions at this point in time.
Okay. Get my new camera organized. All right. So, thank you for your questions. They're streaming in, and we'll have some of our own. Can you tell us what the game plan is with your tantalum niobium project in BC? Thank you. From Switzerland.
Well, thank you very much. The tantalum project is an excellent project. It has a great resource, and it also benefits from a great essential infrastructure. I may surprise some people by saying tantalum is probably the most difficult commodity, or has been the most difficult commodity to work in over the last 20 years. Mainly because the market has been dominated by production from Central Africa, which is the DRC, Rwanda, Uganda, and Burundi. However, production amounts appear to be falling in Central Africa, so we are seeing a slight increase of interest in the Blue River tantalum and niobium project, and we're excited about that. And certainly, there are several companies which I didn't list that have requested samples from the Blue River project. And one of those companies would be Metallicis, which is a group that was financed by Rolls-Royce, originally out of Oxford, I believe. Cambridge or Oxford, at any rate. And they're currently doing some work for the US government and NASA. And they reached out to me recently and were interested actually in processing some of the material from the ashram, while at the same time, they also mentioned this increase of interest globally in tantalum. We did meet a couple of years ago with the world's largest tantalum buyer, which is the Japanese company JX Nippon, who bought most of the processing facilities from the German company HC Stark. So I'm happy to say there is interest, and we're certainly looking forward to seeing if somebody wants to partner on that deposit.
Great. Y'all, I'm sure you get this a lot. When will Commerce be planning to sell commercially the REEs and the fluorspar material, and what needs to be done until that moment?
Well,
So,
you know, the answer to that question is something I'm very happy to give. And this would go into the world's most demanding mining legislation, which is the Canadian 43-101, which was brought about after the incredibly egg on the face, embarrassing situation of what would be the Macbeth in the mining world, which was Bre-X, which was a company out of Calgary, by the way, not Vancouver. But this 43-101 legislation has very specific requirements, and that is 3 economic reports of increasing accuracy. We're working on the second one. We have already produced, I would say, over 90% of the data for the pre-feasibility study, and we should be able to release the pre-feasibility study within about 12 months. At that point, then that touches off the requirement to do the environmental impact assessment, and that itself takes 18 months to complete. During that same 18-month period, we will arguably be able to complete the bankable feasibility study, which is the third and last required economic report by the 43-101 legislation. So 2.5 years to the position or to the point of where we can apply for a mining permit. Considering our, I would say, extremely friendly relationship with the Quebec government, I would hope that we would receive a mining permit in very short order and then be able to be in production within a year, 18 months after that. So I would say best case scenario, Commerce Resources cutting the big blue ribbon at the mine site in approximately 3.5 years from now.
I've heard that there are radioactive elements in some monazites. How do you deal with them if that's the case?
That is a very good question. And radioactive material, or norms, as we call it, naturally occurring radioactive materials, are in every rare earth element project and also in monazite hosted deposits. In terms of the ashram, we're very fortunate because it has essentially no uranium and it has a very low level of thorium. The level of thorium at the ashram is less than half of the level of thorium at Linus's Mount Weld deposit in Australia. And that's not so much the problem for Linus, it's the fact that they also have a decent amount of uranium. We have no uranium. That is an issue. In terms of also processing in North America, we don't even have to strip out the thorium before we ship it to Saskatchewan or to Utah. There are no prohibitions about shipping what would be a Class 7 material across the 49th parallel into the United States. In Canada, you can't put it on the CN or CP rail, but you would truck it from where we process it in somewhere east of Montreal to Saskatoon, and that's easily done. So the monazite material, the monazite sand material, which is available commercially right now, typically does have higher uranium than does the ashram material because it has no uranium. So it only has this very low level of thorium.
Could you quickly itemize the steps and catalysts and checklist of what you need to get to a production decision?
Well, essentially, as I detailed, the required steps by the 43-1 are finishing the pre-fees, then doing the EIA, doing the bankable feasibility study. Those are essentially the steps right there. Should the project go into production? I believe absolutely it should. I just have to prove that to the regulators that it should also go into production.
Can you tell us a bit more about fluorspar and its demand? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. One of the interesting things, and I'll just speak very quickly about rare earth elements, the rare earth element market also changed fundamentally about 3 years ago when China, it was reported, became a net importer. And so China is still the largest producer in terms of a single country, but basically all of that production stays internally in China. So China became a net importer of rare earth elements, as reported by our Beijing rare earth element price service we subscribed to in October of 2018. Prior to that, China had also very quietly become a net importer of another commodity that they were the world's largest exporter of, and that's fluorspar. And that had led to a doubling or a tripling of the global fluorspar price. The dominant producer of fluorspar right now would be Mexico. The material, the feedstock from Mexico is problematic in terms of high levels of arsenic. And so that is why we've received such significant interest from global majors from really many different walks of life. I've got to tell you, because fluorspar ends up being so ubiquitous in so many different products. And so, we've been approached by glass companies who have a fluorochemical business. We've been approached by metals traders. We've been approached by Lincoln Electric, who are the world's largest welding supplies manufacturer. And you need fluorspar, you need met-spar to produce aluminum, you need met-spar to produce steel, you need fluorine to go in the back of your fridge, you need fluorochemicals to produce vaccines. I mean, it's really quite amazing how many different uses this simple commodity is found in. And so the global market for fluorspar has basically never been as hot as it is right now, and the prices are reflecting that as well.
Very good. Thank you. I want to now pass this over to Adam Graff, Amvest's brand new senior analyst of mining research. We're pleased to have Adam and associate Artie. Adam?
Thank you, Campbell. One question that comes to mind that wasn't yet asked is regarding the road and access to site. You mentioned that you're going to be trucking the concentrate to the processors. Can you talk about the time to, regardless of who finances it, the time to build the road and where that fits into your schedule?
Sure, absolutely. So first off, the road was completely the overly expensive road as costed out and set out, by using Google Earth by SGS and the PEA. We've reduced that cost by $60–70 million. But in terms of that road going north, it's a very simple road, and mainly because at that point you're high on the northern shield and it's basically flat as a pancake and it's solid rock. So all of the road building materials are basically already there. But even before you get to building a road, there is the reality of using an ice road for several seasons. So that is something that certainly would be operational, even with a reduced production schedule potentially factored in, mainly because of global warming. So at this point in time, we're conservative in thinking that an ice road would be operational for just under 3 months per year. So we could start production using the ice road if someone else hasn't already started building that road. I would estimate the all-weather road would take somewhere around 2 years to build, but again, all of the road building material is already there. So the idea, just to follow this through, is to extract, approximately 4,000 tons per day, do flotation, the front end of the beneficiation on site, reduce mass by 75%. So on that 4,000 ton per day extraction, we're only looking to transport out 1,000 tons per day. So it's actually not that a lot of material. The idea would be to transport it on an ice road or an all-weather road to a warehouse that would be on the coast of the Coxsowak River, which then flows into Ungava Bay. And then our transport system would be essentially the same as Glencore's Raglan, which is production for 12 months of the year. And they warehouse store material for 8 months of the year, and then over the 4 months of the summer, they ship out approximately 10 ships of 35,000 tons per ship. And so that is our plan. And so whether or not the government of Quebec announces financing it, whether we start production with an ice road, et cetera, I hope that gives you a general idea that we can start production without the construction of an all-weather road.
And construction isn't, would construction be hindered if you were using an ice road as far as getting all the heavy equipment to site for the actual construction?
No, the ice road would actually be beneficial to bringing in the heavy equipment to then build the road in the following season when the ice melts. So no, the ice road is certainly a positive aspect that we would use probably no matter what, or whomever builds the road, they would use an ice road to transport the heavy equipment in.
Yeah. And presumably you'd need a warehouse on site anyway for the first year if it didn't coincide with the ice road.
Sure, that's a fair idea for sure, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And is the cost of construction of the road in the original total capex number of 760 Canadian?
Yeah, it was over 30% of the capex. It was like $265 million. So that was high in our estimate. We worked very significantly with Forchemex, an engineering group in Quebec, on this optimized road route, which we call the pre-feas road route. And this road route is actually the same route that the Inuit use to get down to one of their favorite fishing lakes in the winter, which is called Lac Lemoyne, which is just to the east of us. And actually, when we were at the signing ceremony for the letter of intent with the two Inuit corporations, the Makivik and the Nayumavik, one of the Inuit elders sitting next to me said, "Oh, you know that road route that you guys have proposed?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Oh, I just used it." And this is in April of 2019. And there were two families fishing at Lac Lemoyne, and one of their snowmobiles broke down. And so they got on the radio and said they needed help. And so this Inuit elder went down on that very road route essentially to rescue them, because it was like, I don't know, 20, 30 below zero at that point in time. And you die if you don't get home. You don't want to stay out there at 30 below zero.
Great, thank you, Chris. Maybe, so my understanding is that it's your view that there'll be plenty of off-takers for your rare earth concentrate. Are you waiting to get, a letter of offtake, or what's the process there so that banks can feel comfortable lending you money because you've got somebody that's going to take all of your concentrate?
That's a great question. And, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, China basically created this situation. And then they basically, turned the volume up to 11 in 2010 when they cut off supply to Japan. So in 2005, with what was then deemed by the WTO as an illegal export duty on rare earth elements in 2005, China really kick-started this whole interest of Western OEMs, Western processors, to reduce or eliminate their dependency on Chinese sources. And then when China cut off supplies to Japan in 2010, as I say, that turned the volume up to 11 on that. So yes, I think no matter how much material the Ashram project produces on an annualized basis, we'll be able to contract that out. And I can't say too much about this, but yes, we've got significant interest from basically everybody that is a processor of rare earth elements outside of China. In terms of getting that kind of documentation, that kind of offtake contract, that is what I've been working on for 9 years since we released those spectacular economics in 2012. But at the same time, the rare earth elements were basically, the prices for the rare earth elements were basically in free fall. And so what was the impetus? What was the anxiety of an off-taker to sign such an agreement with Commerce Resources backed by capital? Let me be really clear here. I have no interest in signing an off-take agreement that isn't backed by direct capital investment. So I don't want to sign your typical off-take agreement where, you know, if we produce, then so-and-so, you know, promises to pay. That is no interest to me. I want capital in exchange for a percentage of the offtake, future offtake from the Ashram, and I am very optimistic that we will be successful in getting that.
Has the province of Quebec given you an indication or of how much they're willing to step up and, you know, either on an equity or a debt basis, fund your capital costs?
Well, you know, they put $1 million and in 2017 into the project. We're in very good contact with Investissement Quebec at this point in time. They certainly, I believe, would be interested in investing more direct capital for equity and Commerce Resources. Debt is not something we're looking at right now. We will not make that mistake of shooting ourselves in the head with taking on debt as a junior where you can't service the debt. There are many companies out there that have made that fatal mistake, and we're not going to do that. So yeah, the government of Quebec we're in very good contact with them. I am very optimistic that the Quebec would invest more in us, yes.
I guess I was thinking, Chris, of project debt.
Well, we're not at that point yet, Adam. You know, I mean, we need to finish the pre-fees and the feasibility study before we can actually legitimately, logically talk about debt. So, you know, I mean, the one thing I will say, Adam, on debt is that Vancouver here, the Canadian chartered banks here in Vancouver have probably financed more mines into operation than on any single city on planet Earth. And certainly one of those firms and one of those investment bankers who I met with on the release of the economics for the PEA, the first thing he said after he looked at the $2.3 billion NPV, the 44% internal rate of return, and the payback of $750 million in less than 2.5 years, he said to me, I need to know more about rare earth elements, because, you know, how often in the mining world, in the investment banking world, do they see numbers that good? Not very often, I'll tell you that.
And Chris, just one more thing before I pass it off to Ernie. You know, something that's always been a question in my mind for rare earth projects in general is, if you're producing a concentrate, you know, what percentage of the market price for the rare earths do you get for your concentrate?
Well, you know, the price service we subscribe to, and I'm happy to throw them a bone here, is called Buy Info. It's run by a lovely woman named Jerry Bai out of Beijing, and it's one of the cheapest price services going. And you know, there is a price for rare earth element concentrate published basically every day there. And so ultimately, this also speaks to our long-time goal. Our goal is still to be competitive on cost to China. And the other side of that is that there have been several, I would say, relatively quiet goals, drives of Beijing over the last 10 years. One is to improve the environment, reduce the environmental impacts of mining projects, and rare earth elements and fluorspar mining projects have been horrible polluters, and the government have shut down many of those projects, which is the reason why they're net importers primarily of rare earth elements and fluorspar. But in addition to that, the Chinese have seen a rising labor cost by this huge new middle class of 500 million Chinese people, who are looking for higher wages. So the Chinese cost is going up. And you can see the market value of a rare earth element concentrate that we would look to sell to a non-Chinese processor, you know, listed on the Buy Info basically every day of the week.
Are you implying, Chris, that you believe that the discount from oxide price to concentrate price is going to decline?
No, I didn't go there. I think in general prices will continue to appreciate, and I think concentrate prices will continue to rise, and oxide prices will rise along with them. That's what I expect.
All right, Ernie, I'll pass it along to you.
Thank you. What is the What are the critical factors affecting the impurity removal performance?
Sorry, what was that again, Erdi? The critical inputs
What
to
are the
which?
critical factors that can affect you when you are gonna remove the impurities in the concentrate?
Well, we've already produced commercially marketable concentrates, and we will continue to do that, and we are doing that, and we will be delivering more commercially marketable samples of concentrate to other industry processors as requested. I'm not quite sure if I answered your question, though.
It's like, then I want to ask you, what are the impurity levels in those concentrates? Can you comment on that, please?
The impurity levels?
Yeah.
Well, you know, the concentrate at about 50%, then you have, you know, 50% impurities, basically. The carbonatite is what it is, and so there is still a significant amount of carbonatite in the gangue minerals there, and these would be then extracted in the hydrometallurgical process downstream from the production of the concentrate. I mean, I can certainly send you a breakdown of those impurities if you want to see it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And the next question is, what are the key elements of the environmental assessment report of this deposit? Do you think it's the radioactive side of things, or what are other considerations?
No, the radioactive issue is not an issue in terms of the environment, in so much as the thorium follows the rare earth elements. And so we're actually extracting the radioactive element, and it is carried along, transported along with the rare earth element flotation concentrate, and then it would be either separated out at our downstream metallurgical facility, or it would then also follow the rare earth element concentrate if it was to be processed in North America. In terms of the environmental impact assessment, they look at everything. And as we have been previously awarded this award by the Quebec Mining Association, I mean, everything is looked at. It's, you know, it's water quality, it's all of the effects of the current operation in the camp, and then excuse me, and all of the aspects of that the extraction and the flotation on site might have on the environment. It's very detailed stuff, but it's very typical. I mean, it's done every day of the week at any mining project that wants to actually advance into production in Canada.
Thank you, Chris.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, for some of your great questions. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Artie. And encourage you all to put commerce on your watch list. And perhaps if you like the company, get more involved. With that, the replay will be available on demand at amvestcapital.com/replay. And you can also reach out directly to Chris. So Chris, what's a good email for you? And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Chris, for a closing remark or statement. And of course, on your way out, please, everyone, share your feedback. You'll be queued for it there and in an email. And it's really, really helpful. Appreciated, the good and the bad and the ugly. So, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Campbell. Thank you, Adam. And thank you, Erdine. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the opportunity today to present for Amvest Capital. The best email for me is simple, first initial, last name. So cgrove@commerceresources, all one word.com. I'm happy to answer any other questions that any attendees, viewers might have. It's a pleasure to present to you today the Ashram rare earth element and Fluorspar deposit. We're extremely excited by this deposit, which has essentially proved up all of the promise that we were looking for way back in 2005. Thank you for your attention today.
Thank you, everybody.